All right, we are live. We got a little bit of a happy hour situation going here, Josh. And
We
I'll tell you,
do.
nothing makes me happier than talking some Star Wars and drinking whiskey out of a stormtrooper's head. So I'm ready to go. New season of Andor. I think we both thoroughly enjoyed the first season. I did want to ask you right out of the gates, though, what were your thoughts on the new format of the show? How did you like to ingesting it in all three episodes of the first part all at once?
Yeah, and you have to. I think if you try to watch one episode, it's like, all right, let me go take care of the kids. And then you wait another day and you watch the second episode. Your experience is going to be a lot different than what we went through, Chorizy. Because I watched all three in one sitting.
Right
And
in a row.
It does feel like it was shot and edited in a way that it's meant to be a movie. But Tony Gilroy, the showrunner for Andor, a little bit of a genius way to persuade Disney to give him so much money to make this series. And that's going to be a pretty hot topic as we continue on each week with new episodes released of just like, oh, Disney spent how much money on this show? Is that this is your most bang for your buck by doing it this way. So it does. We were prepared that this feels like 4 Star Wars movies coming at you with Andor season 2. So I do like this format a lot more intimidating, Chorizy, where it's like you need to watch this hour and 45-minute movie, and the next week you got to watch this 2-hour movie. That'd be a little intimidating for viewers.
Yeah, I mean it was over 2 hours of footage, right? And I thought it was awesome. Like I think I like the format. I think too, this is such a they mentioned it in Tony Gilroy mentioned it in a interview during Celebration of like you can watch season 1, season 2, Rogue One, and then A New Hope, like just right in a row. He's like, it's like 13 hours, but you could do it like right in a row. And it seems like that's something that Disney might want to capitalize on. And they might do, I could see where they would do, work with like AMC or someone that they've worked with before, do like an all day kind of theatrical release of some of this stuff. Cause it's definitely plays to a movie audience. It definitely, it feels like a movie. It's just like that, those 3 episodes together felt like a movie. And I thought it tied together really well. I wish they would have done this with the Acolyte, to be honest. I think had they played the Acolyte episodes together like they were built out, it might have been a better result for that show.
Yeah, I'm with you because while watching, and I have to give everyone at Lucasfilm a lot of credit because when you're just watching the scenes and the visual quality, and of course, audio at Skywalker Ranch. Nobody beats audio when it comes to Star Wars content. They just absolutely crush it. You're right, Chorizy. It does feel like this is shot on film, but we know it's not shot on film. It's shot on digital, but it's shot in. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out that Tony Gilroy's like, oh, yeah, by the way, we shot Andor season 2 all in IMAX. Like it's IMAX quality, just like Christopher Nolan does. Go watch this in IMAX. So the strategy so far at Andor season 2 of what we have seen and how they've shot it, incredibly impressive. I can already tell you that when the Emmys come around, the set design, the costume design, prepare your acceptance speeches because, oh my God, amazing job, amazing work, especially during the wedding scenes. Phenomenal job with the costume design.
They spent $1 billion on those costumes. I mean, like you can't convince me it was less than that. That was some craziness. The wedding was just an awesome unfolding, and I want to get into that a little bit because there's throughout the episode they're really focusing on different couples. Like it's very much they're showing all these different couples in the show and their interactions. But there's 2 pairs of couples that like I really was intrigued by. One obviously is Dedra and Cyril. We'll get to them in a minute. That's some wild shit. But let's start with Perrin and Mon because I think in the first season, and you could go back and watch our breakdowns of this. Like, I was like, what a piece of shit this guy is. They gave him some run in this episode, and there's a couple things that caught my eye. I want to throw them at you, and let me know how you know if you were seeing the same thing, if you felt the same way. Now, in the first season, like, they really like tied him and the daughter together, and they were like almost against Mon.
Yes.
I'm starting to see that maybe it's just like Mon Mothma is a terrible communicator, terrible judge of character, and Perrin fills that role in their relationship. Like, and here's one of the scenes that like really felt that way to me: the Tay Kolma scene where Perrin's playing the jealous husband, which is interesting to me because throughout, I'll get to that in a second. I think there's a little more to the relationship than meets the eye, but he's the one that goes, "Oh, that guy's always been weak," right? And this was a shock to her. She had never like kind of understood this, and it's coming to bite her in this episode. And Perrin had it all the way. When she's living her secret life away from him, she doesn't have him to lean on to help her in these social situations, to really gauge people, to really understand people. You see him with Davo throughout the episode, and he doesn't take shit from that guy, and he really sees him for what he is. And even though this is going to be like, you know, an in-law to him, he doesn't give a shit, and he understands this guy sucks. He doesn't want to be a part of what he's a part of. It's interesting to see that. And then the other dynamic I was teasing at is like when he is talking about his daughter, and is the son ready for, you know, Davo's son ready to take her on. The first time I watched it, I thought he was kind of busting balls. The second time I watched it, I kind of felt like he's looking at himself and seeing like Leia's like her mother, and like, is this kid prepared for what's in store for him? Because I don't think Perrin was prepared for it. He's just seeing himself going like, man, I really just wanted to have a lot of fun. We're rich people. I thought we were just gonna have a lot of fun. Yeah. And instead, like, she's got this whole world that's something I don't even understand. And so I think that this is going to play out later, when he's not around to help her with any of this. And we're going to see it either, I think it's foreshadowing that we're either going to see it with her interactions with Saw Gerrera or with Bail Organa. I think that that's where it's going. She doesn't have that crutch anymore after she leaves. And I think it's going to go badly with one of those two. And I think that we're going to see that like Perrin was the one that navigated that for her. So that was a lot, Josh, but what your thoughts on that?
I think that's going to be Mon's ultimate sacrifice. And we know that to be the case because we've watched Rogue One. We've seen Star Wars Rebels. You don't see Perrin.
Right.
You don't see any mention of her daughter. So we're going to be building up to when Mon has to make a decision. What is better for her? Helping the rebellion and overthrow the Empire, or stay with her family? Unfortunately, it sounds like, and it looks like foreshadowing why she cannot do both. And that her husband and daughter ultimately, because they enjoy their life and they live in a life of luxury under the shadow of the Empire, they may be against her. And we may see this really heartbreaking moment during this season where they try to convince someone that I'm going to assume that they love Mon, but Mon can't follow them down that path. And that's going to be really interesting and impactful narrative storytelling, because you see a lot of people hyping up already online about how amazing Andor season 2 is. And that if you think the first 3 episodes are great, just wait, because acts 3 and 4 are far better than what we have seen so far. And that has me excited. So I think in the first couple episodes in the wedding, you're right, Chorizy, that Andor season 2 has set up Perrin to be, I guess, not an ally to Mon, and may continue to poke at Mon, be like, hey, how's your boyfriend doing? Oh, I heard he didn't make it back. Darn. You know, those types of jabs.
Yeah. But I think it does endear us to him a little bit. I think that they've done a better job of like, because like last season, we were like, ditch this shitty family as quickly as possible, right? I think in this episode though, you see Perrin, he is throwing that shade, but it's out of a like, I'm kind of jealous. Like I want this relationship. I want the joy that he talks about in his speech. Like I think he's like genuine in that. And I think that it's good because it's gonna, what you're talking about is like, it's gonna make that break way more difficult, right? It's gonna be way more crushing when he gets left behind. And I think that they've done a good job of like rehumanizing Perrin. And like he's a more like hedonistic human than anything, but he is still like it's seemingly he has passion for Mon. He wants this to, you know, he's upset that this whole Tay-Coma thing's going on. It's interesting to me that they've been able to like bring him back just enough where he's out, right? Like, so you're not gonna like shed a lot of tears, but like it's gonna be more difficult than it seems on its face.
Yeah, I mean, Perrin, I'm wondering if the foreshadowing, what we're going to see later on, Chorizy, is Perrin being like, I don't understand why you can't just be happy with the family that you have. Like, why do you feel it's necessary to help those that might be feeling the pressure of accepting their role within the empire? Like, look at what we have. We live in a life of luxury. We benefit from this arrangement. Why can't you be happy about that? And
yeah, like
I think that's going to be internal conflict for Mon.
I would love it if before the speech to the Senate that we already have seen this in Star Wars Rebels. If you don't know about this, you know, just pretend I didn't say it. But like in Star Wars Rebels, she gives an impassioned speech after the Gorman massacre. And so we know that that's going to be kind of it. But it would be awesome if there is a conversation between her and Perrin before that.
Yeah.
And like he's on and he knows what's coming.
What we needed.
And he tries to fight to not have it happen. That would be really interesting.
I wonder, I'm guessing here, maybe prediction for later on, but I wonder if we're going to see a moment where Perrin's like, I'm not going to help you, but I'm not going to hurt you either.
Right.
So do what you feel is necessary, but I cannot let our daughter.
He'll lay cover, but he ain't going with.
So I will do the right thing as a parent. Right. I will be the good parent. You go try to end the empire. Best of luck. I'll be the good parent. And that would be interesting. I'd love to get, if that does happen, if we do get that moment, I would like to hear from parents on how they view that particular exchange in Star Wars.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think that's going to be, they've built it to be a better break than I thought it was going to be. Because I thought it was just going to be like, man, they're really just making these people suck. And you're just like, oh, good riddance.
Yeah.
Now, let's have some fun. Because I want to ask you about the other couple that is just like, there's some scenes, man. There are some wild scenes. Dedra and Cyril. They are obviously together now. They live together.
Yeah.
The most awkward scene ever in Ferrix at the end of season 1 that has escalated into some kind of relationship. Josh, just give me your general thoughts on this. I'm very intrigued.
I thought it was well shot when they're setting up. I didn't know who they were welcoming for dinner. I thought maybe it'd be like an Imperial officer, Krennic maybe. But when it's Cyril's mom, I just laugh because we've all been there. If you've ever been in a long-term relationship, that first time that you're meeting the other person's parents can be quite stressful. And knowing the type of stress that she places on Cyril, which is way too much, micromanaging mom, helicopter mom, just fantastic way that they set it up. And it was a nice little twist that she walks through the door. But in the moments, they're not even conversing. They're just being a couple. I'm cooking. I'm setting the table. That is so realistic and just in everyday life. That's how couples manage. You don't need to talk. You could just be. And I love the way that they shot it. the color schemes, everything like Coruscant comes in 3 colors, black, white, or gray. Continuing that, the wardrobes and everything, except for Cyril's mom. Very colorful. She doesn't belong on Coruscant, clearly. So I love the setup, and I love the exchange between Deidre and Cyril's mom. As far as like the deal, I thought it was incredibly well acted.
That part was wild. I was like, man, the mom is just like, I mean, it is like, I mean, obviously it's very Jewish mother, but it's also like super Catholic mother too. Like I get the like the guilt laden thing. Chorizy mentions in the comments the all black outfit. I mean, she is absolute Darth Vader in this scene. Like this, like the line that I just loved is she's like, I shouldn't call it a plan because that gives you the idea that you have a choice in this, you know, like I was like, oh shit. That like, I wouldn't talk to anybody like that, let alone someone's mom. And so I'm just looking at Cyril, and I love that he's like laying on the bed. Like he has just given up. And it's like, he is just being handed off from one controlling psychopath to the next controlling psychopath. And I have no idea. I have no idea what is going to happen to this man's psyche. Like he is ready for an explosion. So I'm very excited to see where this goes. It is so wild. But it's so perfect. And Dedra is, I was watching a guy talk about Dedra, and I really liked what he said about it. It was like, she's so terrifying because she's always extremely calm.
Yes.
Like there's no yelling. There's no raising of the voice. There's nothing. It is just this like very calm evil. And that is more terrifying than anything I could think of, man. It is Hannibal Lecter level terrifying.
Maybe that kind of leads into the difference between what it was like under the Empire and the First Order. First Order, a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling. You don't see that. The Emperor, pretty monotone. Darth Vader is a robotic voice. Like no one's really like no infliction except for Krennic. And that's something that now that you mentioned, I'm going to be paying attention to, because I know we got to talk about that particular meeting and the juxtaposition and what Tony Gilroy is looking at the Empire being in real life.
Well, let's actually just jump to that, because like you mentioned the Krennic kind of bluster and everything, and in the books, this is really, really great. There's a book with Krennic and Thrawn in it together, who are totally different, right? And Krennic ends up winning kind of the competition there, even though Thrawn was right. Thrawn did everything proper. Thrawn ends up saving the day, but Krennic wins over on a technicality kind of thing. And Thrawn is this leads into Rogue One as well. Thrawn is like, you know what? He deserves to take over this Death Star thing. And I think with how important it is, Lord Vader should oversee it, and really just like shifts Vader away from him onto Krennic, which is like, when you watch Rogue One, there's like this extra joy of like, oh yeah, Thrawn put you in this shitty position where Vader's choking your ass. So I love that. But when we saw this scene come in, Josh, where they're all in the room together, and Krennic is going to do a kind of presentation, I know what I was thinking. Were you thinking this is about the Death Star? Like this was going to be like the intro to the Death Star. I was surprised to see the Gorman thing. However, we know that the Gorman massacre plays a huge part in all of this. I will say one thing though, that about this is this has been a long kind of thing in the books and in the comic books. The energy initiative that they're talking about is the Death Star. So everybody who's working on the Death Star thinks they're bringing like this like galaxy-wide they're helping them prosper, and like this is going to be great for everybody. And it is, they are building something that destroys planets, right? So I love that he's got that going on, but the interaction there, Josh, the overall the basic boardroom feel of it. What were your thoughts on that? And like just Krennic in general, kind of dominating that room.
Isn't it called the Berghof? Isn't that what was Adolf Hitler's secret meeting room in World War II? In the
so. I know what you're talking about. I forget. It might be the Berghof. That feels weird because I've eaten at the Berghof many a time.
In Chicago, but, right? Very different. Very different atmosphere.
Slightly different.
That whole scene kind of reminds me, because even like Captain America, the first Avenger movie, the very first one, they have that type of base set up with Red Skull. And I saw people were doing comparing, contrasting, and what the Berghof was in real life and how they set it up in Andor. And it's almost identical. So here we go. Like, yeah, Tony Gilroy suggesting that the Empire is just like Nazi Germany. And here we go. Our Department of Enlightenment, which is the propaganda department. And just the way that things are just being pitched on how they're going to take over this planet, and different ideas and why they need to do it. Like, we have to do it. Even though you may feel in your gut like this is not a good idea, that there is going to be pushback, ignore those feelings and press on. We must do this for the betterment of the Empire. And it's just I see the commentary that Tony Gilroy is using Star Wars as the narrative platform to replay events that happened in real world history. And that whole scene is very uncomfortable. And you can see that the Imperial officers are really uncomfortable with this plan. But at the end, they're going to press forward, because what other option do we have? We don't have another option. There is one. And the only option is the betterment of the Empire. And if you piss off the Emperor, you're gone. So if you want to continue to have your head or continue to have the role that you have in life under the Empire, disregard your feelings and press on. And that's the impression that I got from this room. Even though all the actors did a great job, everybody showed some hesitancy, like this doesn't feel right. But at the end of the day, you can see where the evilness in their hearts win the day, and they're going to press on with this massacre.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that to your point, like of like the way that they present it, right? The propaganda around it. It is, science fiction has done a great job over the years of pressing on this idea that exists in our society of, well, ending one life to save thousands, right?
Right.
But what happens when you multiply that times, a million, right? Like, are you still supposed to feel good about that kind of thing? And it really, this is another example of that, where they're like, if we drill into this planet the way that we're going to have to do this, it might destroy the whole planet. But hey, energy for everybody else.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's
those guys.
That's the play. Like, yeah, it's like, we'll sacrifice this planet, but for the benefit of the whole galaxy. And it's really that like end one life to save 1,000 type of thing times a million. And like you really have to like check your moral compass on something like that. And I think they do a good job of it there. And I also think that Dedra really sets up the next few acts of this show, because when she mentions the insurgents, the Gorman Front was mentioned in the season 1. They are going to play a huge part here in season 2. The Gorman massacre is really the linchpin in the entire break of the rebellion, right? Like, so this is, and we see it with Cassian, right? Like there's this ridiculous faction of people that are playing rock paper scissors basically to try and decide who gets to be in charge. These are the people they have to unite, right? Like, so there has to be something gigantic to get all these tiny factions to come together, and this is what this show is building towards. So you're seeing these like tiny factions, you're seeing this craziness of like, oh, screw this planet with these stupid spiders, we're going to just blow it up because we want what's inside of it. All of that is kind of like culminating. Now, as all this is culminating, Luthen still one of my favorite characters, Josh. He is incredible. And Stellan Skarsgård is a great actor. And yes. I have loved him. Like the wedding is beautiful for him because this is him turning it on and off constantly, which is the excellent part of his character. One of the things that made me laugh the most was it's a little tiny part. He's talking to someone in the Imperial Navy, some young kid. And he's like, oh, you know, where are you stationed? And he's like, blah, 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 but we're all going over here. And he's like, ooh, what's going on over there? And it's like, you are literally telling the head of the rebellion what's going on right now, kid. I love that part. But like, we know that what he's got going on during this episode with Clea and with Andor, they are stealing a TIE, I think it's a TIE Avenger. They're stealing a TIE Avenger. What's he planning? What is going on behind the scenes here?
You know, that's a good question, because if I remember correctly with Rebels, it was Thrawn's prototype. Instead of doing the Death Star, he wanted to do TIE fighters that had shields that could jump into hyperspace.
Yeah, so I think that is the TIE Defender, but this is definitely a version of it, because Cassian does jump into hyperspace with this TIE.
He does.
So like, this is definitely on the Thrawn path here, whatever they're stealing.
Yeah. So I think it's just military intel. We heard that they're developing this new TIE fighter. Let's steal one, reverse engineer it, understand how it works. It's confusing to everyone. You know, that even that Rebel faction's like, I have no idea how this works. It was kind of funny in how this show starts. Neither did Cassian. And he finds a way, very Bond-like. Let's just shoot a hole through the garage door and drive right through. We see that plenty in James Bond movies.
That was awesome, by the way. I want to say, like, him stealing that and not knowing how to fly it and like everything going wrong. That is one of my complaints in like whenever I watch one of these movies where it's like there's some aliens and stuff and they get the ship. Everybody just knows how to fly everything somehow. Cassian not being able to do it and just like being like just really reckless with it and having to shoot through the walls, and perfect. I loved it.
Yes. So I think it's just military intel, but they got one now. And I think you're setting up for those that didn't watch Rebels. If you just want to help people along, yes, there are prototypes for TIE fighters that could jump into hyperspace. That usually isn't the case. TIE fighters were a cheap type of vessel, more swarming in the attack. They were able to travel long distances because they were nearby a Star Destroyer. Where X-Wings, they had hyperdrives and they can jump into light speed to bounce around. So that was the big difference between the two aircrafts or spacecrafts that we see all the time in Star Wars, where I like this concept that he steals a prototype. I like how it flies a lot different than what we've ever seen in a TIE fighter from any of the other movies and shows as well. So I thought it was really cool and how they set up, and they must have built a prototype because that did not look like blue screen or green screen. They must have built this TIE fighter for production reasons.
So Cassian, Diego Luna was talking about it. And this is something that like he had to do is one of his last scenes was get back into the TIE fighter. And it was a actual, like, I don't know if it was the whole thing, but it was definitely like the cockpit thing where he's in there flying all this thing. It was all practical. He's in there doing all of it, and he was just like, he was talking about how like the child in him was like, I can't believe I have this gigantic working toy that I get to play with, and you know, like this is my last day on set, and like it was really cool to think about that, and it looks great.
It does.
I'm with you. It looks awesome. I also, and to just give a little bit of background, if you're watching this and wondering about what we're just talking about with the TIE Avenger, the TIE Defender. So Thrawn had a very different idea than General Tarkin on how to subdue the rebels. Tarkin is a very, very big force, like we'll just blow up a planet and put the fear into people. Thrawn was more along the lines of the rebels are in these fast X-Wing fighters that are good against all of our huge ships because our huge ships can't work fast enough. The TIE fighters are good in defense, but they don't have any shields for themselves. They can't jump into hyperspace and chase anything down. And his idea was to have ships more like that, faster than the X-Wings, and destroy all the X-Wings, take out the rebel army piece by piece. The Emperor sides with the, hey, let's just blow up some shit. And ends up being the downfall, right? I mean, like that's one of the things that is so intriguing about what might come with Ahsoka, because you have such a smarter military mind in Thrawn.
You do.
That aside,
you really do.
What is Luthen doing? Josh, I've got like kind of a little crazy theory here that like I think Luthen is planning kind of a false flag attack, like where they come in with an X-Wing and attack one of the rebel cells in order to drum up kind of like the support of all these people. Because if they're in control of it, they can have hollows of it. They can do all this kind of stuff. And I'm wondering if they accidentally do this on Gore, and so the Gorman massacre is partially Luthen's fault. And this is some of the stuff that Cassian's talking about when he says, I've done a lot of terrible things on behalf of the rebellion. Because we need to see those terrible things. We haven't seen them yet. We're running out of years. So I'm wondering if this is where we're going.
I love your conspiracy theory. Like, stage an attack on a rebel cell to unite all of the rebel cells. I buy it. I buy it. Luthen would totally do something like that.
The reason I it's even in my mind is because Cassian says, like, what if it blows up or whatever he says in the trailer, and Luthen's response was it'll burn very brightly. That just kind of like tips me to that. But I got another crazy theory for you.
Okay.
Josh, and I want your thoughts on this. Cyril, and I wrote this in a blog the other day. I think he somehow provides the info on the Death Star to the rebels. I don't know if it's unwittingly. I don't know if it's on purpose. But it just feels like there's so much been put into this character. He has to have some important thing, and all the research that he's doing and at his regular job, like seeing where all the fuel's going, all this stuff, keeping his eye on those things, having the relationship with Dedra, it just feels like he's the idiot that's going to have this information and either see what happens on Gorman as he's trying to chase down Cassian and just be mortified by it and say, like, I'm on the wrong side, or just unwittingly give this information up. Like, one of those two things happen. Am I insane? Or is this a possibility?
It could be a possibility. I'm not completely on board. I think what Cyril's importance is that he's going to discover Luthen is the ringleader of the rebellion faction. He's going to find where Luthen messes up and trips up, and ultimately is Luthen's downfall. I don't know what the impact would be on Cyril, But again, Dedra is supposed to ignore Axis. She was given that order to move forward with this massacre or what's supposed to be going down on this planet.
Yeah.
But if Cyril finds evidence or an angle to work the case, it's going to pull her away from what is supposed to be her duty, which creates conflict for her because she clearly does not want this project. She wants to continue hunting down Axis. And I think Cyril's going to be the one that finds who leads to Axis and will create issues for Dedra in her standing in her career with the Empire.
I like that. I had a different thought, but I think we're both on the idea that Cyril becomes the fly in the ointment for Dedra.
Somebody.
Now I think I like the Axis idea. Like he figures out who Axis is. It takes her off what she's supposed to be doing. Shit goes awry on Gorman. I had the other idea. I had he leaks this information and she's got to go and treat him like Lenny and Of Mice and Men. So I knew there was going to be, I felt like there's going to be some problem there that she's going to have to resolve with him. But that's interesting. I like that idea that he kind of tracks into this and figures out while he's looking for Cassian that he finds the guy above Cassian, because Luthen doesn't live through this. There's no. He's not in anything we've ever seen, right? So he's gone. And I think that's kind of a theme of this show, is that there's a lot of people that are not in Rogue One, that are not in A New Hope, and so what happened to those people? This is the trail of dead to that. And that brings me to my next question to you. So Cassian's now endured the death of Marva and now Brasso. And both of them very, very noble, very meaningful deaths. I mean, the Brasso thing, when he's caught and he starts yelling at the guy just to throw the scent off and be like, this is, there's no relationship here. This guy is dead to him. Beautiful scene, beautifully acted. The little tiny nods are great. And Brasso is just that guy. Brasso has protected Cassian. He protects this guy. He's protected Bix and Wilmon. Just a great protector. And he dies doing this. And you see Cassian fly off, and Cassian's twitchy as hell as he leaves there. That looks like a guy going insane. And I think that you see that this is what's pushing him to probably do the terrible things that he's going to do. But at the same time, are we going to continue to see this through the series so that when it all clicks for him in Rogue One, he's ready to make that sacrifice, because he has basically a line of people behind him that have done that, and he's seen the example.
Because in Rogue One, it's Jin's speech that inspires him and the ragtag crew. Something
snaps in him on Ito, right? Where he doesn't pull the trigger and kill Galen. That's the turning point of his character. And I wonder what it is about that situation, about Jin, about all of that relates back to this. And he sees that I'm doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And and I think, we still have no idea what happens with Bix. And there's seemingly a very close relationship there.
Yeah, the Harvest episode. So right now the Harvest episode on IMDb.com is getting an 8.8 rating. And the Harvest episode, by far and away the most talked about, and continues to be what happened between the Imperial officer and Bix. I think we should talk about that in a moment. But with Brasso and this continuing theme of Cassian just losing people, right? He loses his droid, right?
Yeah. Good call. B2 Emo stays behind on this. And it's Brasso and B2 Emo.
So it's like Cassian, like now you've gone down this path, and it is a path of suffering. And we learn about this path through the Jedi lens. Like the Jedi are trained to ignore it. Do not have any attachments because it will cloud your judgment and it will lead you to the dark side. But people who aren't force wielders, who don't have that ability, how do they handle losing attachment? And I think it also drives to this point, like the Jedi are just not normal people. They are just not normal. For normal folks, they have to mourn loss in a much different manner. And unfortunately, in that situation, to leave one of your best friends behind in the middle of a wheat field because you have no other option, because you've seen the Star Destroyer in orbit, we got to get the hell out of here if we want to live. That is an incredibly gut-wrenching decision that Cassian Andor has to make. And I am going to assume he's going to have to continue making as a character, as we know, and how his story ends.
Yeah, and it continues into Rogue One, right? I mean, like we walk into Rogue One and he shoots a guy that he's just like, that obviously he knew, right? Like this is, I don't want to call it a friend, but at least someone he's familiar with, someone who's helping him, and he's got to shoot that guy just to basically like be like Luthen and just say like there's no trail behind us. You mentioned the scene with Bix, and Bix is an incredible character throughout this show so far, and so we should give a little time to that. What did you think about that whole play, going forward?
Yeah, the sexual violence. So this is where I tweeted out that there are some aspects of this season that remind me a lot of Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones has, if you've never seen the show, who hasn't at this stage, but in case if you're one of the few thousand people on planet Earth who have not seen Game of Thrones, tons of sexual violence over 8 seasons. It starts immediately in episode 1. And as a viewer, you're just kind of taught of having to deal with this and continuing to watch all these scenes of sexual violence, groping, incest, rape throughout all 8 seasons. We've never had a sex scene in Star Wars. We've seen kissing, but we've never had a sex scene.
I mean, the first implied one was in the first season of Andor. Like right. Tony Gilroy is like, it's like, you know what? People fuck. That's like Tony Gilroy is broken that barrier in Star Wars.
But not having a warning, this can be triggering for anyone that has had to go through, unfortunately, this type of incident. That's a misplay on Tony Gilroy. Now, in the Hollywood Reporter, he was asked about it, and his whole explanation is that we as society are a product of rape. Boy, Tony, you need to hire a public relations person and work that out. That was not delivered very well. The actress that plays Bix, Jason Momoa's now girlfriend, why am I spacing on her name? Yes, Adria. Her explanation to feel that empowerment of a woman to say he tried to rape me and see that man not do a damn thing about it and say, well, he's dead now. Very real interaction, very real and unfortunate interaction, but we have never seen that in Star Wars. So I can understand where there's a lot of pushback right now from the diehard Star Wars fans. Like, all right, you have crossed the line, because as a Star Wars fan, you just had me watch The Goonies, which is a great show to watch with my kids. But if you're going to hype this up saying this is the greatest Star Wars content ever, and it's not like kids are not on the internet these days, and they hear that, oh, this show is amazing, Dad or Mom, can I watch this with you? And they see this, that's where it's a line too far, Tony. Okay, you're in Star Wars. This isn't Game of Thrones. So I felt like that scene is out of bounds. And I will try to, I can't ignore it. It happened. It's unfortunate. I hope we don't see any types of scenes like this again, but I can see where for people that are really uncomfortable and are getting off board right now, it's because of this particular scene. And it did just come out of the blue. And I don't know if it really helps with the narrative, because if Tony's like, well, it really demonstrates just how evil the Empire is. Chorizy, Return of the Jedi came out in 1983. I was born in 1984. Throughout my entire existence on this planet, I know the Empire is evil in Star Wars. You don't really have to go that far to demonstrate it. And I just, yeah, for me, I think it went too far.
I will say, though, part of this is that it seems that they're pushing on the product of making Bix go insane. Okay. Like I think that like the nightmares were there already from the torture. Now it definitely feels like there's going to be something going on with her where like her thoughts are not going to be rational throughout the rest of this, and Cassian is going to have to handle that. He's going to have to handle that. And I think this is going to bring him to some very difficult situations that he's got to deal with.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of where this is going. And like, I don't know if they needed to go that far, but I think that there's good reason that she's going to be way out of her mind for the rest of this. And that look at the end of the scene, like in a short, like in a year, she has been tortured by basically Dr. Mengele.
Yeah.
Then Brasso dies there. She loses Marva and this situation. So I think that it's all building to kind of this core group of 3 people, because Wilmon's been through it too, right? His dad died, like was tortured to death basically by the Empire. Here's 3 people together flying off of this planet, escaping, who are way out of their minds at this point. And like all that's got to be coped with. And it makes me think that one, the Bix situation is going to get really dire, and Wilmon is going to end up with Saw. And I think that's and I think that these kind of things they're trying to really enforce that, like, yeah, this is a rebellion, but there are different levels where people are at with this thing. And it is the back to the axe forgets, but the tree remembers. Mm-hmm. That is core to this whole show. And yeah, it's a graphic scene. It's fucked up, but I think it's Tony Gilroy really making a point of like, we're too desensitized for that 1980, 85, 86 level of evil. We need the recency evil to really understand it. Sorry, that's a pretty
decision that needs
pretty heavy
above his head.
Yeah, maybe, but also, you know, if think about it this way though, if we came to later find out that this scene was in there and Disney axed it, you might be disappointed in the fact that like Disney didn't trust the artist to do what they wanted to do. Because in the first season, I'll tell you what, fuck the Empire. I would have rather had it than fight the Empire. And they axed that. And I mean, that's a very tame version of this. But Tony Gilroy has produced basically the best thing that with Rogue One. He wrote the best thing that they've done in the Disney franchise of Star Wars. So I'm going to give him a little grace on this one, even if in the press, Jesus Christ, what are you talking about, Tony?
Yeah, again, PR. I think I would have edited differently. I do not need to see the scene. I don't need to see the moment where the Imperial officer is dragging her on the floor. That is where I felt really uneasy. I would have cut that 7 seconds. I would have put a disclaimer just to mentally prepare.
The disclaimer, I understand. The disclaimer, I understand. Yeah. I would have gotten a closer shot of that kill shot though, of her hitting him in the head. Like I would have.
Yeah.
Give me horror movie impact on that with practical techniques.
Right. So it generates a lot of conversation, which is clearly what Tony Gilroy was aiming to do. Is it for shock value? I think that's to say it's just that scene's in there for shock value. I think is underplaying what Tony is trying to say in the messaging. Because even like Empire is vast, but they don't have oversight in everything. And the people who work for the Empire, I think Tony is trying to point out, are a special evil. And because nobody's overwatching what the lieutenant's doing, lieutenants feel like they can do whatever they want. And they did whatever they wanted. And that's a type of evil that we haven't seen in Star Wars. And maybe something that we're going to have to prepare for future episodes with Andor. So again, I think it's a big talking point until next week when we get new episodes. But I can see if people are like, this is not Game of Thrones. I get that point. I do get that point.
Josh, to end on a different note, and still on a murderous one, I want to ask you did you enjoy the homage to The Godfather 2 of Cinta driving off with basically Fredo in a very similar the ship to the boat? Like, it was very much, I was like, oh, Fredo's weak and stupid. He had to go. He had to go.
It perfect. And I'm sure in the next episode we're going to see the ramifications. But the next episode we're another year, right? We're moving another year.
We're going to jump a year. That's what's kind of interesting about this. And we'll
why didn't you show the assassination of Tay? Is there something in the actor's contract that he can't be shown dying on screen? Like, you didn't.
It would have been funny. It would have been funny, Cinta throwing him out the thing over like
ejection seat. Boo.
Yeah. And like, just give us an Easter egg. Cloud City's in the background, like, but I think that's in general, like the idea now, and your thoughts on this so we can wrap it up onto like what's next.
Yeah.
We're jumping a year. Do you like that? Like, there's no kind of morning after the fact for Mon to think about. She's hammered at the end, right? She's not thinking about the fact that Luthen's really got her on a string now because he's doing this. Cassian's not reacting to what just happened. Bix is not reacting to what just happened. There's none of that. We are going to jump a year.
Yeah.
That's how this show is going to go. How do you feel about that? What do you think is next? Like the Gorman massacre, I don't know when that's going to happen in this show. Do you think there's an interstitial between that, or do you think that's up really quick?
I don't think we're going to see the Gorman massacre until not next week, but the week after, because then you need the aftermath of the Gorman massacre. So I think it's going to lead up to the massacre. Yeah, I think you're going to see in how Deidre's plan is going to set into place.
That fits really well with the Rebels timeline. So I'm with you. I don't think they're going to retcon that too much. So like, I'm with you. I think there's going to be an episode between. I don't think it's the last episode.
No.
I think the Death Star plays too much into the last episode. So like, I think maybe the third grouping of episodes, I should say. So next week, what are you expecting?
Oh boy. Are we going to see Saw Gerrera? We need Saw to be introduced next week. So get Forrest Whitaker ready to go. I think we're to meet Saw. And I think we're going to have Luthen side with Saw's strategy and technique, where it continues to make Mon uneasy. I'm expecting to see a lot of anxiety and uneasiness with Mon for another week.
Yeah, I think this week is where it gets very crazy. I think that we talked about this a second ago, the scene where Saw is saying, "You're here and you're ready to fight." I think that's Willman. I think that that's him.
Yeah.
And I think that they're going to get directed to go to him to be safe. Like that's where Clay is going to send him. Go be with Saw. And I think that's where things are going to get wild. Because Saw's out of his mind. Like in Rebels, you see him
right. You
at
see
this
why.
point. We're at this point, and in Clone Wars, we know about his sister. Like at this point, he is nuts. And so I think that's where we're going to go next. I think, and Chorizy brings it up. When do we get to K2SO? I think it is next week. Okay. I think that Cassian is going to have to leave Bix and Willman with Saw, and there's no worse place for that to happen. And that's why I think that like the buildup of, man, these people are really losing their minds. And now his dad has died, and his girlfriend is separated from him. Like you could tell that there was a relationship there because he risked it all to go say goodbye.
I did. Yeah.
And all of this is culminating to them really going off the deep end. So that's where it's going to happen. And then Cassian, the K2SO thing, B2 Emo's gone now. He can't go back for B2 Emo. K2SO enters the realm. So I'm excited about those things. It's going to be, I think next week is going to be probably the most gut-wrenching of the season, because it's going to leave like a million cliffhangers. The rest of it, after those episodes, it's going to go so fast into Rogue One that it's just going to feel like you're on the downslope of the roller coaster. This is the getting up to the top of the roller coaster, and all that like in the pit of your stomach waiting for the drop. That's this coming week.
The reviews from trusted people that have claimed that they've seen the entire season, they would slightly disagree with you, Chorizy. They think that moment's going to come on May 6th. So the week after.
Okay. So
a lot of people who have seen the entire season, even Richard Roper has seen the entire season. We are not prepared for the 6th and 13th.
See, I want to hear it. I want to hear it from guys like from people like Star Wars Explained and New Rock Stars, where they know about.
Get a chance to watch it,
and so they've all seen it. I would like to see where they place that, because I feel like if the Gorman Massacre is the 3rd episode, they might already have a knowledge of what's going to happen next, and this might feel like the top of the roller coaster. We'll see. I'm excited for it. It's going to be great. I can't say enough good things about this series. I think it's the best work Star Wars has done in a while. So I'm very excited to see what's next. Josh, how about you? You feeling excited for the rest of this?
I am. It's a much different tone than we are used to with Star Wars, but I wonder if we're going to look back and say, oh yeah, the first week was by far the weakest. Just
I would love that.
Season 1.
I would love that.
Season 1. Andor season 1's like, okay. And then we got to the prison and it's like, whoa, this is incredible. And then the end of Ferric, or it just like, yeah, Andor season 1 starts slow, amazing finish, like from the halfway point through the second half. I have a feeling we're going to have the same type of reaction. Like, we like this first week, but in a couple of weeks, we may look back, Chorizy, and say, yeah, that first week's not good.
That was really slow. That was really slow.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, all right. Well, Josh, thank you for joining me as always. We'll be back next week. We'll see what day. I'm not against the happy hour situation here, so we'll talk, but we'll figure out a date, and we'll talk to all you soon. Have a good night, everybody.